June Street Committee, Monday the 25th of March. So the first thing on the agenda, apologies for absence. No apologies received. Next thing, minutes of the last meeting, and the pack, all happy with the record?
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed?
Yeah.
Right, next item is disclosure of members' interests. No. Forward plan of cabinet decisions, pages 5 to 8.
Just move to the features.
Yeah, information after that. Okay. Right. First main item 5. So very warm welcome to Advanced Northumberland. You've brought a team, all your top guys and girls, and look forward to your presentation. So if you give us a presentation, which give an overview of what's going on with Advance, and then members of the committee will be able to ask questions. I take it you're happy to take questions during the presentation? Yep.
Thank you very much, Chair.
And obviously, this is Robin's last appearance, as he will be moving on to pastures new at the end of the week.
That's correct, yes.
So, unfortunately, the cake that we had prepared for you has been stolen by the. But one more minute.
Well, we've still got 4 days left at Advance if you want to get it done. Yeah, well, thank you very much for having us along here again. We've prepared hopefully a short presentation, taking you through some of the things we've been up to over the past 12 months since we were last in this forum. Before further ado, though, I would like to introduce Stephen Harrison, who is taking over the reins at Advance Northumberland. I'm very happy we're leaving it in very capable hands, and all the good work will continue. For the format of the presentation today, as you say, I've brought the team here. So if you do have any questions, you have the expertise at hand to give you all the answers. Hopefully you could want. But would you like me to do a quick rundown of the team?
Yes, that'd be great. First, introduce your team.
Even I don't know, kick off and we'll run down.
Not put across too much with Stephen Harrison. I joined last week, so Robin and I are just having a handover. So I'm hoping that I'll get to catch up with all of them in due course of time. So thank you for inviting me.
Morning, everyone. I'm William Thompson. I'm the Executive Director of Governance and Sustainability. I'm also the Group Company Secretary. I've been with Advance 1 year this week.
Morning, everybody. Andrew Mowbray, Director of Projects. Michael Black, I'm the Director of Vision Growth Investments.
Morning, I'm John Hanson, Director of Finance.
Morning, everyone. Paul Aaron, Director of St. Homes.
Morning, everybody. I'm Alexandra Watney, and I'm the Head of Marketing and Communications.
Morning, I'm Lee Farrihan from Worsley.
Morning, I'm Van Raan, I'm Head of Funds.
And I'm Jeff Reed, I'm Chair of Arch and Founding Director, and I'm still there, so must be doing something right.
Advance Northumberland. You said Chair of Arch.
I was.
Well, you were Chair of Arch.
I was Chair of Arch.
You're not now.
No, I'm Chair of Advanced instead.
That's it. Right. Okay, Robin.
Thank you very much. Right, I'm going to pass to William to start with, who's going to give us an update on our sort of high-level corporate stuff before we go down to where the magic happens at the coalface with the rest of the team.
Yeah. Well, part of the magic happens. The administrative support function as a holding company for all of the group activities. So we provide the sort of common support services that the rest of the teams rely on, such as HR, finance, although John's here with us, but it's within that division, marketing, communications, business operations, we call it, essentially the administrative functions, ensuring, our ensuring procurement is run correctly, all of the group policies are brought forward, renewed and amended as appropriate. We cover the health and safety function across the group, and particularly also the well-being. It's a particular, some of you may be aware, but it's something I really want to be sort of champion this morning. Our HR coordinator, Victoria McSparran, has just been awarded the North East Better Health at Work Advocate for her championing of the health work initiatives throughout the company, which is really well supported and really well driven by her. So it's a tribute to her team. And I was going to say the culture within Advance is very collegiate, and I say I've only been there 1 year, but having witnessed that coming through, it's a very good place to work. I think that's shown by the recent staff survey was demonstrating a great positive engagement throughout the last several years that Pam Robertson, the head of HR, has been leading on to capture that. So very much a positive direction of attitude and commitment to the company. Within the company, just, you know, we have about approximately 157 people at any one time. That's sort of the level of size of our company now, and staff across all the divisions. We do work still very closely hand in hand with NCC. We're sharing several SLAs, such as energy, health and safety, procurement, amongst many others as well. So, and the communications working very hand in hand together. Certainly a lot of joint collaboration, or certainly regional activities. Andrew will mention in his presentation the Blythe Hub and the Energy Central Learning project. So we're involved at certain county level activities as well as the company. For the governance side of it, which is predominantly my role, I've been the company secretary for coming up 3 years, but as I say, just in the company 1 year. This year has been a really important and exciting for me. We've reconstituted the board. Members may recall how I'm very much heavily a member director company. We now follow it. May last year, we brought in 4 independent non-executive directors, following the encouragement from the Cala Review for the council to have a look at the way that the company was to let it be more of a commercial organisation. Cabinet agreed that in November 22 that's what it wants. It wants a commercial company, and the purpose. So that's what we're bringing through the improvements through the governance and procedures. The highlights this year, obviously, the arrival of the independent members, independent directors, a new chair in Jeff, which again is from the constitutional point of view now enshrined that our chair will no longer be a member of the administration. I think it's a really good linkage between the council and its wholly owned company, but getting the balance right with the independent directors and the executive directors now, so that we acknowledge who our owner is, but you allow us to be that commercial entity that can be delivering on our and your policy. So that's where we've brought forward some new articles of association to again reflect that more commercial operations, so that there's less and less reserved matters, but still very important. We have Jan on the call, who's our controlling shareholder representative, who's the conduit, the link between us and the Cabinet Shareholder Committee. Jan attends all boards, and so is fully aware of what's going on in the company. On an operational level, at the governance operational level, following the articles amendments, we'll be bringing forward a new operating agreement with the council to reflect how well we work together, bearing in mind we have people when you are our owner, our funder, our client, our supplier, depending on how we're working together. So one of the ways of us bringing our disparate businesses together from a governance point of view, I think I'm championing the most here is our ISO, quality management, safety management, and environmental management systems that bringing all of the companies together, so we have continuity of procedures and policies even more than we have at the minute. I think you've got the presentation, and I will not be telling you all the individual bits, but just to show that we come together as a group to be able to make sure that this is cascaded throughout each of the individual disparate businesses. I think that's all of the main ones I want to say, but happy to take any questions.
There's no particular bit. Yes, okay, well.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to take you through 4 slides just to give an update on the activities of the projects team over the past 12 months or so. So on a general note, we've continued to support the Dublin County Council projects as well as delivering advanced-led projects right across the county. We are also supporting the climate change team recently with some of their retrofit projects. And in general, we're supporting the net zero carbon commitments by promoting carbon reduction across all of our projects and setting ambitious targets to minimise energy use. Looking at a few of the specific projects, so Morpeth Leisure Centre, that successfully opened around about a year ago. So we've spent the last 12 months supporting active and the other building user through that operational period, through dealing with any defects and issues quickly. I'm delighted that that building's been nominated to 2 RICS awards, including Public Sector Building of the Year. So we'll find out in May whether it's been successful, but I do think it's got a really good chance, which would be fantastic. Next slide, please. Just looking across at Blythe, so we continue to be an integral part of the Energising Blythe delivery team. That includes the design and build of the Energy Central Learning Hub. That project's going really well. The external facade, if anyone's been down there lately, is now well advanced. And that build is well on track to open in September 2024 and planned. Over at the marketplace in Blythe, the Blythe Culture Hub, again, over the last 12 months, we've managed the design process of that, got it through planning, and coordinated the recent appointment of Gear Construction as the main contractor for that project. Enabling work started in October, and as we sit here today, the foundations are now well underway, and that building will open in summer 2025. Also in Blythe, amongst other things, we've been supporting the climate change team with a feasibility study for a district heat network using waste heat from mine water. Hopefully that project will move forward into more advanced design stages in due course. And we are reviewing the role of the new build project in Blythe are ready to receive that connection at some point in the future so that they can have lower carbon in the future. Next slide, please. So over in Ashington, so we're delighted to be involved in the delivery of the Ashington Regeneration Programme. A couple of key parts to that. The first one is the Wansbeck Square redevelopment, which we are providing project management services for NCC on. That project involves creating a new gateway between the Northumberland 9 station and Ashington Station Road and the High Street. The other main part of that project is the Portland Park Cinema, which is an advanced-led project, but part of that same programme. Designs are in its early stage at the moment, but we will be undertaking some public consultation in May following the forthcoming election, and then planning applications will be made later on in the year. And a final slide, Bedlington. Around about 12 months ago when we were here, we just started to deal with the administration of Poland Construction. So following that, Advance took over the delivery of that project as principal contractor, and we've delivered the first unit on budget with a minimal delay to the programme. That unit's now occupied by Greggs. We started the second phase of work in December late last year. And unfortunately, as probably most people are aware now, that Servo Construction, who took over from us, unfortunately entered administration themselves earlier this month. So clearly we're currently dealing with that issue. Can't say too much at this stage, but what I can say is that we're in discussions with a number of contractors and subcontractors, so we can establish the best, the quickest, and most efficient way to get that project back started again and minimise any delays. I expect within the next 10 days to have some positive news to share in terms of how that's going to be taken forward, but we're all working hard to get that one back on track. Over in Berwick, so Berwick, we're just completing now the conversion of the historic mob store building into a temporary cinema. That's an important project to allow the maltings to be able to operate from that site when we then close their Eastern Lane site. So that's now ready pretty much for them to start getting that ready for use. And the final one from me, Berwick Leisure Centre. So again, another one where we've had to deal with the fallout of a contract now entering administration. We were able to quickly appoint a new contractor to complete those works, which ended up in us completing in August last year with a minimal delay. That was the car park, the play park, and the various public realm works. Okay, that's the end of my presentation. I'll hand over to Paul. Any questions on that?
Okay.
One of you know. Bevan project, Andrew. You said we finished off after Tolan when they were finished.
Yes.
Why didn't we finish off what's left now then? Have you got the expertise and the manpower and whatnot to actually do the building work? That's my question.
Advance could do that, and we're considering all options at the moment. But from a risk profile point of view, it would be more appropriate for us to appoint another principal contractor rather than Advance. The situation's quite different this time round. The first time round when Toland went into administration, the building was substantially complete, and there was a much lesser amount of work required to complete the project. So on balance, the decision was taken, which turned out to be the right one, to continue that in-house. We also had the situation now where Greg's had an agreement for lease to occupy that building by a particular date. So again, on balance, that was why that decision was taken. This time round, the state of the project at the moment is the foundations have just completed. And the next stage would be to start erecting the steel frame and continuing from there. So it's probably on balance and much more appropriate for us to appoint a separate principal contractor. So hopefully does that answer your question?
Yes. Not sure I agree with it, but yes. And maybe Michael, how are the negotiations going for what the other 3 units that's going to be built there? I mean, is there likelihood they're going to be let straight away as soon as they're built?
There's no immediate pre-let, hence the speculative nature of the development. I'll come on to that later on, but effectively we've got interest in Bedling Town Centre from some of the larger retailers. The 3 units we usually find with smaller units, they'll got donor interest as and when they're built. Smaller businesses generally don't plan that far ahead. They'll normally see a building and then take the opportunity to occupy very quickly. But marketing continues, and if we can get some pre-lets, clearly we will, because that's advantageous to us. It means we've got an immediate amount of traction in terms of income coming in. It also means we've got some animation there as well. At the moment, there isn't any pre-lets on the 3 retail units.
Right, and my final question, and I might be William. In your bit, you said that Advance was kind of like moving towards a more private company,
More commercial.
Yes. How does the council exercise its control over that then?
There is the Cabinet Shareholder Committee that is the ultimate body that we respond to. They are our shareholder. But the company delivers its function through the board, but then reports to the shareholder through Jan as the controlling shareholder representative in terms of our activities. And if there's anything that was to be challenged or questioned, it's the communication between Jan. It's principally more the ongoing conversations, keeping in touch on an informal basis or a regular basis is more the group executive director or the chief executive's role. But Jan plays a very important part and close part with all activity actions, and she's aware of all board papers and reports back to the Cabinet Shareholder Committee directly. So I'm not privy to Jan's conversations with the Cabinet Committee.
But there is some
the way
oversight. I mean, there is some member oversight, shall we say? There is some sort of oversight on it, and could maybe give a direction to it or something?
Yeah, I mean, as William said, there's very close working at all levels. The ultimate sanction, if you like, is the council owns 100% of the shares in Advance Northumberland, and therefore is able to execute at any time a shareholder resolution to directors to do whatever we want. I would hope that doesn't happen very often, because we've got a good working relationship. The council is very heavily involved in, for instance, appointing our directors to the board, so it has control over who looks after the company on a day-to-day basis. On a project level, of course, we usually require funds to do a project, and within our constitution, we have to bring that specifically back to the council for approval as what's called a reserved matter. So there are leads at every kind of level that make sure what we're doing is in support of what the council wants us to.
See, that's the bit I'm slightly concerned about. As a private company, it's the bottom line, simple as that. But as an arm's length company of the county council, if you like, there should be some social benefits built into that as well. Now, sometimes you're going to be asked to deliver something that there's no bottom line on, and we know that. Is that still the case?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a board director of the company as well as sort of an executive. It's very clear, we have to act in the best interests of our shareholder. So if our shareholder, which is the council, makes it clear that something's important to them beyond the bottom line, we need to reflect that. So it's not all about the bottom line. And we also like to take a sort of long-term view of it. We know that the council is here for the long term. As a company, we work with them to support the long-term improvements to Northumberland. So it's not about the fast buck today. It's about looking at what's good into the longer term.
Well, right. What I take out of that then, Chair, is it's really the cabinet of the administration that's making those decisions.
That is the governance arrangements that have been put in place following the CALA review and all the advice the council got from that. Yes.
Yeah.
Chair, if I may. Yes. It wouldn't be the cabinet that makes the decision. The board and the company will make the decisions that we would then make recommendations to cabinet as our shareholder. So they don't direct us what to do. We as I say, the commercial organisation are there to deliver on what we're tasked to do from a commercial point of view. But it's not, when it is commercial, it needs to make money, but it doesn't need to make as much money as it possibly could. So I think there are levels of commerciality that we are definitely very conscious of, our social impact and the wider benefits that we bring, being the county's company. But we do need to make money, so that has to be a factor. But in terms of just being clear that the cabinet can direct us what to do, it has that power, but the day-to-day, that does not happen because we and the board and the company are delivering on what it wants. It has the ability to challenge, and so it has the oversight. And if we were doing anything that they were not happy with, then they could make those decisions and direct. But at the minute, it's the responsibility with them, the oversight with them. They were satisfied with the way we're doing it. But I don't want people thinking that the cabinet just tells us what to do, because that was the whole point. It just terminology there.
No, I'm sorry, that wasn't really what I meant. It was the social implications, really, that I'm talking about, and a broader.
And they make sure that is part of what we deliver.
A broader representation from all members, really. That's all I'm talking about. Thank you.
Okay, Constance.
Thank you, Chair. Michael, you mentioned before about still marketing Bedley out actively. We've been marketing it for about 10 years now. So I know we've got proposal on the table regarding the hydro pool. Are we any further forward with that? Are we doing anything with that? Have we put that to one side and we're still marketing?
So we always market until such time that we've reached an agreement subject to contract. We're still working with that interest, the specific interest you mentioned. We've had very recent meetings to progress that, and with our colleagues in the council and with our project management team, we are supporting that interest as much as we possibly can. There is other interest as well. So until it's such time that somebody puts forward a proposal, and if that proposal is deemed to be acceptable, It then is put forward our board to recommend that transaction taking place. And then if it's approved, then yes, it will proceed on that basis. So there are commercial interests coming in of a larger scale nature for the sites to the rear, as opposed to the 3 retail units, which are much smaller. But we'll continue to progress that interest. We know that interest is still there. And if we can conclude that successfully, we certainly shall.
So at the minute, I know because of commercial confidentiality, you can't go into names, but have we got specific retail outlets that are interested in coming into Bedley?
Yes.
Okay. I'll let you wait for that one. Thank you, Chair.
Okay,
Can I just, for my own clarity, does the county council pay advance? Let's stick to Bedling because I know it intimately. Does the county council pay advance to do everything? Market, get subcontractors loaded up for the Bedling site, or do you make your turn when you come to let the property and take that? Because basically, we give you the land, you go and get somebody to build the stuff, we pay for it. So where do advance get paid, if you like? Do they just take the rental after it's built?
It's quite a complicated, I mean.
Yeah, I know this, that's why.
The strengths of advance, and this is why I've got the full team here, we're several parts. You know, Andrew looks after the project management, which is getting things built. Michael's our sort of investments and economic growth, so is marketing it and bringing in companies to use it. Then Lee looks after the commercial aspects, so when we've got finished units, we'll be letting them out. And you know, John looks after housing. There's some rental housing, as you're aware. So in terms of how we work, the project itself, in terms of getting it built, there's a funding pot there. It's partially loan, partially grant, to make it stack up. And part of the build project pays for Andrew and his project management team. That's a fee that goes into the project, I believe. I'm looking from the nod here. But then in terms of the long-term side of it, yes, we will only start to recover those costs once we get everything in place. And we've got a rental income to cover the cost of the loan and the maintenance and the upkeep, as you'd expect.
So
If that's not an easy answer, but
I understand it perfectly. What I want to ask you now, though, is if what Michael said comes to fruition and we get some retailers interested and you build the units, you'll be coming to the council for the capital cost of that build, I presume.
To that one?
yeah.
So not necessarily so. So depends upon the offer that's made. So 3 types of offer. You can get one, which is just to buy the land. And that is quite common. Aldi did that, if you recall. They simply took forward an acquisition. A number of tenants will come forward and say, we don't want to own the land, we don't own the building, we'd like you to build a building and we would like to rent it upon completion. That would be something that would require us to seek a loan from the council to build, and then we pay that loan through the income generated from the tenant. The alternative is to grant a long lease on a rental basis as well. But either of those provide an opportunity, and at the moment, keeping it as flexible as that. So we are not being stringent, other than the 3 units that are being already built, in the process of being built. Because they're built speculatively, they will be rented by a tenant. Although somebody could come along and say, I will take a long lease and say, can I have 125 years and I'll pay a capital premium. But that money then goes into the business, and then it's accounted for as part of the overall commercial portfolio, because the site sits within the commercial portfolio. And you'll see when I come on to my aspect of the presentation that it is multifaceted. We are all aligned and we're all working together. So a lot of the work that we do in economic growth investments actually does contribute to the bottom line of commercial. But we do have a balance between supporting economic growth, and sometimes economic growth isn't a commercial activity. supporting new business and bringing in investment into Northumberland can come at a cost. And generally, the bigger the business, the more jobs they've got, the less they want to pay, just the way it works. But where we can support our investments through creating commercial assets that do generate revenues, we've got some of those now come out of those, that will support those businesses that come in that simply need land and support to bring that investment into Northumberland and into the county.
I'm just, we've been going at this for what, 8 years now?
It's been a major part of my life.
There's been a lot of your time.
Yeah.
Which equals salaries. There's a lot of costs involved. I'm just wondering where those costs come from, where you get the recompense for those costs, because what you're saying is until you start renting out, so who's covering those costs was my question, really. I presume it's the county council.
No, we don't. In terms of our general overhead, it's spent from our other trading activities. Our salaries are not led at all by the county council. We don't get subsidies. The county council will maybe pay us a grant to help get a project away.
So like a capital grant or something.
Yeah. But we get nothing to support our core or overhead. That's all generated from our commercial activities.
Thank you. Thanks.
Right, okay, we'll move on to, oh, sorry.
Yes, just a really quick question. I mean, you did mention there that 2 of your preferred contractors had gone into administration. Can I just ask, I'm quite sure that the third one, what safety things can be put in?
Yeah,
I mean, it's to make sure the third one doesn't go, and presumably whoever will pick was one of the first ones that you didn't choose. So how can we ensure that the quality and the standards are still there?
Right, this is a work in progress, and we've not made a formal decision yet on how we'll take this forward. But
yeah, I mean, I think it's important. The background of this is quite important. I mean, in the past 12 months, there's been 4 regional contractors who've entered administration. So we are dealing with a perfect storm, really, when it comes to the trading conditions for construction contractors. Can't say too much about the reason for the latest failure, but we carried out as much due diligence as we possibly could at the time, checking all of the latest accounts, credit checks and the like. But what brought them down actually was a number of contractual disputes that have come along in some of their other projects, and that's actually what actually brought that contractor down. Which would never have really shown up in the due diligence that we carry out to the extent that we did. But you're right, when we get to the point of the contract, be absolutely critical that we do all of the work that we can to ensure that they're stable and they will get through to the end of the project. But I think we have been hit just by really unfortunate circumstances on this one.
It's just a balance, and Malcolm asked the question before, was is the advanced team capable of taking anything over if this happens again? And in that case, why don't we do that in the first place?
Well, as Andrew said, I think it's to do with what's the best balance of risk and resources looking forward. And Andrew and the team will go through all of the discussions with other contractors, and we'll plot out what the optimal route is. And bluntly, if we can't get acceptable contractors to take up that role, then it makes it more attractive for us to do. But if we can share that with some of the risks by passing it on, then that's what we'll do. So from a commercial due diligence, obviously we can never give a guarantee about the scale of that, but we do everything we can. And there are also steps we take will mitigate that in terms of a bond being in place, retentions, so that there are some protections in the event of an unfortunate administration.
It is worth noting that we did see the Sergo issue coming a few weeks before it actually happened, and we did put a number of things in advance and ultimately the place, and we do have sufficient funding available over from that contract.
Thank you.
Right, well, we'll move on to the next stage of the presentation, please.
I'll cover the next section. There's a couple of slides, bit of an update on SEND First slide is about our developments and achievements over the past 12 months. By the end of this month, in our financial year, we will have delivered across 5 units throughout Northumberland from Blythe to Wooler. And as a new way of delivering projects, we are delivering 58 units for Benicia on affordable and shared home ownership within their Seton Hall site in Berwick. Nice milestone for the company. We've achieved our 600th property complete at Kingsmead in Wooler. There'll be some press release coming out on that imminently. And we've moved into new phases at Elmington and Chopperton based on the success of the previous phases. And at the moment, the efforts are being put onto plan and mobilisation for starting 6 sites coming throughout Northumberland for starts within the next 6 months. And our Ellington show home that we've opened, we went as a full off-gas show home. So it was air source heat pump, photovoltaic cells and battery backup storage, just so we can use it as part of our net zero journey in the future home standards. So we're trying to be ahead of the curve on that. Next slide covers through our people. And part of our growth plan, we've established our in-house design and technical team. It gives us flexibility. It allows us to be adaptable for new change in regulations, but also will offer us some financial benefits in the long term. We've then fully established our health, safety, environmental team, headed up by our health and safety manager, but we've also brought in a trainee health and safety advisor as part of our Grow Your Own future team. Then our commitment towards our commitment towards quality, we fund our own quality team. So we have an ex-NHBC inspection manager, who now heads up carrying out inspections through the build stages, but also working with our supply chain to educate them on what we expect is the level of quality that we want. And we've also put a trainee role into that department as well. And then within our land and planning team, we now have a qualified town planner who supports within that team as well. That was it, short and sweet.
Okay. Nick,
You've got 6 developments happening in the next year. And do you have much of a sort of land bank for developments beyond that?
No, we don't have any land bank. Our funding facility doesn't allow that. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Paul, when you mentioned the first off-gas show home in Ellington, are there homes in the next phase, or they've been built to that specification? Or
not in Ellington. No, it's in the Ellington scheme. There's not. That will be delivered all the way through. The only change that might come is when future home standards come in, depending when the update to the building regulations come. That could be forced upon us. That it will change, but it's there taken through as a bit of a trial for us to see what the benefits are, what the challenges are, but it also allows us to say to our purchasers, we have a show home at one site, a show home at another site. That is true data on the run cost, because there's a lot of speculation that air source heat pumps save money. There's equally the same speculation air source heat pumps cost you money. So we want to do our own raw test data to say to people, this is what it means. But we do have schemes starting at Bellingham, Hadston, which are fully off gas as well. So we have to use it on that. So use this as an opportunity, as a bit of a trial for us to see how it could work.
Just one question on the back of Nick. So you said that you have no land bank. Is it a policy not to have land bank, or is it that you had some time before and it is now empty?
Because of our funding, as it's been touched on, all of our funding comes directly from Northumberland County Council. If we were to buy a site, if we land bank that to start in 3 years' time, we would be of interest in 3 years' time. That would be all of our profit would be gone before we started on site.
Right. So it's a kind of a policy level decision not to have.
No, it's not a policy level. It's just a financial viability level.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, right, thanks. Now, sorry, Mark.
Paul, as part of your plan conditions, you'll agree to afford health and so on. Who gets them? I mean, I know you've got your own.
Sorry, sir.
Who gets the affordable housing element?
The affordable housing would go to whoever. Sometimes depending who is more who has a greater presence in that area. So if it's within the north of the county, it is predominantly Benicia. They have a large base up there. Depending, sometimes we discuss it with Northumberland County Council. So Northumberland County Council took the 11 affordable homes at our Wooler development. Coming through from our other developments in the south. So at Ellington, there is no obligation to provide them, but we, as part of our relationships with Benicia, and they had a willingness to acquire some, we provided them, and likewise at the Choppington development. But it would be, sometimes it could be in discussion with Northumberland County Council, with other RPs, or we could be putting them out for tender to see which registered providers were interested. Northumberland, when you look at it, it is quite, you can look and you know who the registered provider would be in that area. So
You're not allowed to keep yourself.
we're not a registered provider.
No. Well, you rent properties out, don't you?
Yes.
But you're not registered. Social.
I'll let John will cover that as part of his presentation.
Yeah, I can address it now. Right.
We're a private landlord. We're well behaved. We would like to think we're best of breed, but we're not part of the regulated social housing sector.
All right.
Me next. Now that's on my first slide. So just if I go through, let's go to the first slide. Just have it registered. So economic growth and investments. This is where we do form a unique concept of having economic growth aligned to investments. Investments being primarily a commercial activity, and economic growth being one that supports inward investment and securing jobs and employment for Northumberland. We work with a number of stakeholders. We work with the council very closely. We work within our own business very closely with our commercial team. We acquired initially quite a number of assets that we use in our commercial portfolio, including land and property. But focusing on the strategic land acquisitions, that's allowed us to secure and continue to grow our strategic employment opportunities throughout Northumberland. Predominantly growing business, growing the economy through securing new inward investment into the county. It is a pivotal role in terms of what we do. There isn't any external companies doing this. We are quite unique within Advanced Northumberland, and we're quite unique as a team. And we do that through land assembly, property acquisition. We identify and access markets. So we have a team that goes out to inquire, to make inquiries with businesses as to what the requirements might be in specific sectors, so in pharmaceuticals, in energy, electrification, offshore wind. And we make sure we promote all of those to secure that inward investment. We'll come on to some of the key projects where that's been successful. And as well as doing that, we then secure funding through either ourselves, through the council, but we also secure external funding where available through government and through regional HOTS, North of Tyne Combined Authority, for example. And from that, we generate revenues, we create capital, we invest, we create business rates. New businesses generally set up a new business, they create business rates that the council benefits from. And overall, we're promoting economic growth and supporting all. Next slide. Go to the next one. That's the next one. Yes, there we go. So, yeah, sorry about jumping around here, but the slides seem to have gone out of probably a little bit. So, a key part of the work we do. Here we have the energy park. This is a tremendous growth hub for Northumberland. It is quite significant in terms of what it's been able to achieve and what it currently has available. It's formed principally out of all of the coal generation, all of the coal-fired power generation that came through our pits, all the work that was previously there, the major employment in Northumberland. But that infrastructure still exists. So Blythe Power Station is a hub of power. It's also a hub where there's a large amount of strategic employment land. If you put the land and align that with the power, you have in very investable opportunities for business. And that's been borne out by the amount of interest that we currently have. We have unprecedented levels of interest in Northumberland at the moment. On the bottom slide, you can see JDR Cables. That's principally offshore wind. That is the UK's first subsea cable manufacturing plant. And when I said we bring money into the county, that's £130 million of investment into Northumberland. £30 million of that came from central government and was also supported by the UK Export Finance regime. On the upper slide, Northumberland Energy Park, you can see a number of key assets there. National Grid, Northern Power Grid. These are substations within which they are then provide opportunities to take that power and export it throughout the UK. And if you look at the North Sea Link, it exports it not just throughout the UK, but exports to Norway as well. That single asset generates a substantial amount of revenue for Advanced Northumberland, in excess of £600,000 per annum. And that provides us with opportunities where we have sites with less profit, but good growth opportunities in terms of jobs and employment skills. And what we've got on net 2, which is the site just to the west of the site in green, which is the Gigafactory site. We also have currently Berwick Bank Wind Farm has a planning application in to bring a new converter station in to Blythe in the Camas. And that converter station will produce up to 2.9 gigawatts of power. Putting all that power into one site or one location provides that interest. And the Gigafactory site is currently receiving a large amount of that. Now, whilst we know the British vote failed, they did succeed on a number of levels. They did succeed in securing power to the site. They did succeed in securing planning permission. They also undertook a lot of ground investigations. So we've got a lot of knowledge and information about that site. And that 234-acre site will produce at some point in time a significant investment. It's just making sure we get the right thing in the right place at the right time. Looking at other strategic employment side, Ashwood Business Park. We acquired that from a joint venture. It was a particularly successful joint venture between the RDA at the time and a private company. We've now managed to get that site into to liberate that site to access funds through the North East Local Enterprise Partnership. And we've created new opportunities for the expansion potentially of Axon Bell, Contech, who've already built out 60,000 square feet. And of course, we animated the frontage to Euro garages and the Starbucks drive-throughs that sit there to provide a amenity to what is a large-scale employment site. Right, we're going to pick the next slide. Can we see which one we're going to get? Like roulette this. No, that's not mine. Yeah, we'll go for that one. So as well as our strategic employment sites, we have a dedicated business growth team, strategic account management that looks after large scale businesses, and hence they've been able to support 80 new growth projects, delivering 538 new jobs and 144 million new investment. This is not our investment, this is investment by private companies either coming into Northumberland, and by that we're looking at the likes of RWE, for the Sophia construction site at Port of Blythe, TT Electronics, their second clean room expansion, Merit and Organon Pharmaceuticals in Cramlington, who've also taken on board a new investment, securing 130 new jobs. And at the bottom there, you've got Red Engineering, it's 1.3 million investment into a new research technology centre, supported by 130,000 of Regional Growth Fund. As well as that, we have successfully concluded the ERDF projects, which finished in June 2023. That was Business Northumberland, Rural Design Innovation Project, and the North of Tyne Rural Business Growth Service. And following the closure of those programs, we set up a new program, Northumberland Small Business Service. NCC is the accountable body for this one. And it's UK Shared Prosperity Funding, 4.8 million, part grant, part business support. And that's continuing to grow, to continue to prove very positive and very successful. Can I have the next slide, please? No, I've only not had one more. I think we did have Wansbeck Business Park on there at some point. You seem to have lost. Oh, there it says. Repeat Wansbeck and strategic sites. Are we told yet? So our strategic sites do include Wansbeck Business Park. You'll know that the new Ashington College campus, 30 to 50 million pounds of a next gen zero college campus in the heart of Ashington now, to take over from the old one. It's been delivered by the Department of Education and will be taken on board by the Ashington College itself. Very successful in planning terms, we hope. And once that gets planning consent, then obviously it'll start construction. And I think that is a tremendous addition to the offer for Northumberland, to have a cutting edge college to support jobs and employment. And if we can create that, then we have a pipeline, there's a horizon, if you will, for a more youthful generation. And this will also provide a much more youthful demographic for Ashington itself as well, alongside other strategic sites that we acquired back in the day. About 10 years ago, we bought Wandsbeck Square, fully aligned to the new railway station, because when that comes in, there'll be a whole new landscape coming in for the work that Andrew and his team are doing. And similarly to Woodhorn Road, provides a punch through into Portland Park. And Portland Park hopefully will have the cinema and be completed very soon. In addition to that, Bedlington Town Centre, which we've already touched on, Timeview Retail Park, we've got additional interest in that. If you recall, that was the former West Wylam Colliery. Very difficult site, very challenging site, but we managed with a joint venture with Northumberland State to create a whole new destination in Northumberland, securing new investment, keeping the pound in Northumberland. So a lot of people were going to Gateshead, but now they're not. They're still shopping in Pruitt. And Amble Retail Park, which we aim to conclude as soon as we possibly can. We know we've got the anchor with Morrison's and their petrol filling station. We've got interest in the drive-through. We've also got interest in the surrounding apron for large-scale retail. It's just getting the funds aligned with the rents, because build cost inflation has taken its toll on a number of projects. And I think that is it. Thank you. Any questions? John?
Question. Some fantastic schemes you're doing here, but one or two of them, like Amble.
Yeah.
Do you take into consideration you've got Morrison's out of town, you're going to put other retail there, the damage that'll do to the town centre by taking it away to edge of town or out of town? I know many towns, I mean, Mobile's fought against it for years with the town plan, and there has to be a knock-on effect to the town centre.
I'd agree. It is a balance, and it is a difficult balance to keep. I mean, a number of retailers simply can't trade in a town centre environment. So it's a question of if they want to come in, what do you do with that opportunity? So what we try and balance is something that keeps the town centre vibrant. So I'm not having shops that compete with that. It's inevitable that they will, and it is a difficult balance to keep. Whereby prior to Morrison's being in Amble, people were shopping in Alnwick, or shopping in Ashington. And the idea is to try and keep that pound, that spend in the town itself, and to have a complementary offer alongside the town centre. But I do agree it is a difficult balance to keep, particularly where you've got large scale discounters and what they call variety stores that can take a lot of the trade off the high street.
Councillor Taylor next.
Thank you. Michael, in Bedlington, you've built Greg's, and we're really grateful because it's very, very popular. But it was built in the middle of a conservation area, and that building really doesn't fit into the conservation area. So what was the thought process that went behind building something totally different to the rest of Bedlington Street?
Well, helpfully, I've got Andrew sitting on my right hand. And question to Andrew, who's more clear on screen.
I mean, you've given your opinion there on the visual appearance of the building. What I would really say is that building complies with all of the planning regulations. Conservation area consent was obtained for that, and we've had a lot of discussions with the various officers within the local planning authority to come up with that design. I know it has divided opinion, and I see the comments on the various forums, some in support, some against. But the colour of the glazing, that has been basically dictated by the planners. So that's what that is. The brick facade. Again, I've heard people say, well, all of the other buildings are stone. Well, they're not actually. If you look around the conservation area and the design guidance, stone and brick was equally used, and that is where that comes from. Equally, the slate roof, again, that's another thing that's taken directly from the conservation area guide for the town. So, but I do, understand and acknowledge your opinion on the look and feel of that building.
And the retail obviously plays a part in that as well, because they've got to like what they're, they wouldn't lease a building if they didn't like the look of it. And keeping Greg's was a really important part of it.
It was.
And they do drive footfall, and that will make those three units that are being built, they'll make those very attractive. If you can get a shop next to Greg's, provided you're not trying to sell sandwiches and pasties, But anything else, if you get a shop next to there, you are going to be in a very strong trading position for whatever you sell and whatever goods you provide.
I agree totally, and I mean, Greg's is like pivotal, really, to people coming in our town centre now.
Thank you. The council are doing a review of its estate's portfolio as part of the BEST programme. Are you getting consulted in terms of identifying any opportunities for economic or social value within the council estate that you could actually help leverage?
We are aware that that work is ongoing. I don't think it's concluded yet, but as ever, we are always extremely helpful and grateful when land opportunities become available, particularly if they're in specific locations where we know we can deliver economic growth or support inward investment. But I think that the work's ongoing, and we work closely with those officers on a day-to-day basis. As soon as that's concluded, I'm sure there'll be some joint working that we can look at, if possible, to deliver.
Okay, thank you.
Malcolm?
Right, just to put Chris's thing in perspective, you know, some years ago there was a design guide, there was a consultation. Most people opted for option C, shall we say. That wasn't allowed, and we had to go with option A. What I would suggest is don't ask the question if you don't like the answer you're going to get. But my question is for Michael. Gigafactory site.
Yes.
Is that going to be a gigafactory site? We're not going to see that hived up piecemeal and.
So because that's a council-owned site, listen, we are working closely with the council. We have the surrounding assets. We have Northern Energy Park 1 and 2. They, if you like, provide the power and the energy. We've got JDR ongoing, and obviously want to get their second phase away. But the gigafactory site sits very much with the council. It's for them to take the lead on that one, and we will support inevitably whatever the council chooses to do with that site. But it is, you are right, it is fundamentally one of the greatest opportunities that Northumberland has to secure strategic opportunities, not just within that area, but to broaden the strategic employment portfolio. Because at the minute, we're sitting on a very small number of sites. A number of those sites are already in development. And the opportunity now is to use the power that we have to grow and increase that portfolio, to increase jobs and opportunities. But in terms of the gigafactory site itself, it's called the gigafactory site historically. Yes, everyone would like to see a gigafactory. The market will play a large part in that. The opportunity, the council can't bring opportunities in. The council can only respond to proactive marketing to ensure that the site is available to the market, and it certainly is. And one of the other things that Britishvolt did is to raise the profile of that site and Northumberland to a very high level, to the extent whereby, you know, we have regular meetings with government because it is deemed to be that important. We have regular meetings with government because we've got significant investment already attracted into Northumberland, and we'll continue to do so. But that's a question mainly for the council. If I'm honest.
I'd accept that, and there is questions there because it's part of the actual buyback. But you mentioned build cost inflation. Are we seeing that come down?
Yeah, it's certainly under control now, definitely. And I think there's two things in the inflationary pressure is definitely reducing, and also there's much more competition back in the market. So those two things are combining to much more favourable tenders starting to be returned.
Well, my last question on the site, probably for Robin. Have we sorted Farron's out? Is that signed, sealed and delivered? Is that off the cards now?
I am not going to go into any details in this forum that could have commercial implications, I'm afraid. So I will just leave it at that at the moment.
So I think it's still ongoing.
I couldn't possibly.
Paul?
Oh, thank you, Chair. It's slightly related to this theme of this ask, but slightly outside the topic, maybe definitely outside of Bedlington. Is there a section within Advance which will liaise with the multinationals who would be interested in investment within County Northumberland?
Yes.
Who is that person?
Yeah, but I don't stand alone. I have a team, so I have a head of economic growth, and we have investment team as well.
Okay, thank you. So Michael, I would, because I wear another hat, I was sitting with a Chinese multinational. I work in the university. We were developing a project plan, research project plan. They were the industry partner. And the research is about how to efficiently store the energy generated by the wind farm.
Yeah.
Then there was a lunch meeting, and I was talking to that guy, Chinese multinational,
yeah.
And they have a British arm here. And he asked me, once he knew that I'm a counselor as well, about British oversight and everything. So they seem to be quite aware of it.
Yeah.
They were discussing with Sunderland battery plant, which produces only automobile batteries, but we were specifically talking about batteries for storing energy. So I wish I had some name to pass it on. He is the guy you should talk to. So before you go, I'll take a few cards out of you.
Yeah. So
because I really missed some information about advanced Northumberland.
So we get inquiries on a daily basis. Now inquiries come through various sources. So there's the Advanced Propulsion Centre in London, which is the arm of government linked towards EVs, electric vehicles, and automotive. We get a significant amount of inquiries to do with static battery storage. And indeed, dare I say, if you go back to Ernst Young, on the demise of British Volt, when British Volt went with administration, the joint administrators, Ernst Young, decided that their preferred bidder would be Recharge Industries, that initially had a project that was going to be static battery storage. Static battery storage is extremely valuable in terms of balancing, all that power that's coming in. So when the wind turbines are turning, great, get the power in. When the wind turbines don't turn, well, what do you do with the power? You need to balance that against the overall grid. The only thing with battery storage is that, and it is a challenge sometimes, is because they require quite a large area of land very close to the sweet spot that is the jobs and opportunities for employment. And those in themselves don't often generate a lot of jobs. There's the construction, obviously, and they're supporting the grid network. But this is part of the work we're doing in terms of increasing and rebalancing the portfolio. So we will have land available sitting alongside that. You did mention the likes of Envision, for example, which they provide the batteries. They're Chinese. They provide the batteries for Nissan, but all automotive batteries. But within that ecosystem, we are working with some of the major industry leaders in electricity distribution and power to create, if we can, a microgrid. And the microgrid itself will require some balancing of the electricity supply to ensure that we can maintain a regular, clean, green, and very affordable supply to keep us very competitive. Because at the moment, electricity has a very high cost, and that cost is very, very often prohibitive. And we have seen a number of investments leave the county, not leave the county, but take the next steps, and then they get a quote from Northern Power Grid. And with that, Northern Power Grid quote what they need to quote. And the costs and the timescale often prevents them from making that investment decision, and they'll prioritise other countries in Europe. So what we're trying to do, if we can, is to create the opportunity for a microgrid. It is something that's used in large areas of industry. IAM, for example, in Sunderland, South Tyneside, that has a microgrid system. And working with, as I say, with partners, we aim to create a system that will be able to provide that green, clean power to an overall energy park, if you will, an energy campus. And if we can do that, then we'll become much more competitive nationally and globally.
Thank you very much. I think it's a bit of a competitive field there. So before you go, I'll take some of your cards so that I can keep it in my pocket, so I can.
I haven't got any cards with me, but I'll bet it with
I'll give mine. So you
mind, I'll sort that out. Thank you very much indeed.
Chair, if I may just pick on something that, the councillor's mentioned about, I wish I knew about this, that's something that Alex is working on already, about what we're calling like a top pocket guide for councillors or new members of staff to the council to get to understand what Advance does, because we are quite broad and varied. That's something that would is already happening, that will be something that you can all have, so you're aware of what we are. So it's like a little pocket guide to Advance, who you might contact. So
going through your advanced site, but it was a kind of a maze to go through and extract the information. Yes.
from our
Yeah.
marketing team.
Thank you. Yeah.
Right, next part of the presentation, please.
All right.
Thanks, everyone. Yeah, so just a little bit of background. So the Homes portfolio has just under 1,200 properties, primarily in, and as mentioned previously, the vast majority of the private rented sector as well, which means we operate in a challenging scenario whereby the bottom line's key and we have to generate as much profit as possible and help fund some other activities of the business, as well as looking after the portfolio. But also because of we've got a responsibility like any landlord does, because of our connection with the council, we're often seen as a social landlord, although we're technically not. So we do endeavour where possible to make our properties as affordable as possible and to be the pinnacle of a private landlord as much as possible. And hopefully that's reflected by some of the customer satisfaction stats on there. I won't talk you through them, but as you can see, pretty much between 96 and 100%, good, very good or excellent responses. So we're pleased with our customer satisfaction. And over the last 12 to 18 months, we've made a real conscious effort to sort of improve some efficiency and efficacy of some of our processes. And we've done some restructuring as well. But one of the core things to focus on is any changes we've made, we want to ensure that the service level never suffers. Ideally, it improves, but never falls below what we're currently offering. And put one of the next slide, please. Yeah, so one of the core areas we've continued to improve on is occupancy. As you can see there at 98.5%, excluding the Hearst, which is the highest we've ever been as a company. The target's 95%, so we're operating above that. In terms of the Hearst, I've referenced the reduction programme there. There was a point in time where we hold about 425 properties in the Hearst. There was a point in time when we had some significant long-term voids, and in partnership with the council, we were looking at a long-term regeneration strategy, and it was deemed the right choice at that time to hold some of that stock empty rather than investing heavily in it if it was going to be subject to some regeneration. As the regeneration strategy progressed and as the holding costs got tenable, to be honest, it was deemed that we should start reducing those. As you can see there, we've increased occupancy by 16% since we've done that, refurbishing and reoccupying 104 houses. With projections, if we stay on the same trajectory, we'll be around 95% occupied by the end of the next financial year. We've also looked at stock rationalisation, so essentially properties that aren't making significant profit or making a loss or are due to have expenditure that will put them in that position. The ones we've disposed of have all been outside of the county, so it hasn't affected any housing provision here. And we've generated 1.1 million this financial year and forecast a further 1.6 million next year. We've also commenced our stock condition survey programme, which will see us within the next year surveying every one of our properties to give us a cost surety over the next 30 years of expenditure and also help inform our decarbonisation strategy as well. Another thing we've worked on is our void refurbishment programme. We've reduced our void times by around 50%. And when you think of the void costs associated, utility costs, council tax, and also lost rent, when you think we're refurbishing between 150 and 200 properties a year, that's quite a significant saving. And we're working on a tender at the moment to outsource the refurbishment of our 30 most challenging voids. And that way we can still progress the way we are with the more manageable ones that let these larger properties outsource and try and reduce the cost as much as possible on those. Yeah, that's all the key points I had.
Just in terms of the council tax empty homes premium, presumably that's acted as an incentive to address some of these issues financially. So that was sort of a question, but also you mentioned the Hearst and the 104 properties being let. They're being privately let. They're not being let through an RSL.
Oh yeah, they're all private. They're all private lets. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
Just a quick question. Will you keep all the stock you've got on the Hearst?
Yeah, well, I'm disposed of that.
Okay, now next, please. Please do the next portion.
So again, just quick, was to stop to have commercial, just again, in terms of sort of the background, the portfolio itself, which is predominantly been bought by investments in the past, and it comes in as managed by the commercial team, stands at 1.7 million square foot of space. That varies from obviously office, retail, industrial, managed workspace, and some leisure in there as well. It's across about 50 sites within Northumberland itself, so it goes up to Berwick, across to Prudhoe, Hexham in the west, and obviously the central core of it is sort of Ashing, Hamlin area. And it houses about 600 businesses, like separate businesses in total. The portfolio itself, the occupancy at the present moment of time stands at 97% across the board. The key sort of demand in everywhere has always been pretty decent over the last few years. One area which we've spent quite a lot of time on is our workspace sort of brand, though, in the last sort of 6 to 12 months, where we did have, with the transit nature of some of the tenants, there was some less occupied areas. But now the fully focus on that is really short, and we have Blythe as at 100%. It's predominantly a lot of sort of the energy sector, which is in there, and a lot of the businesses which are coming there to work obviously with Michael, and some of them are quite sort of big short-term lets that come in and then move on to bigger things. Berwick Workspace is also an area where we've managed to get really high occupancy, and what we have brought in there recently is 2 national banks where they've closed on the high street, but we've been able to offer sort of a satellite provision for them there, so it's keeping sort of that sort of rural area where they still have people that can come in, the services are still there. From a capital receipt point of view, over the last sort of year, we've managed to bring in about £3 million as part of our sort of rationalisation and regeneration programme, just getting surplus assets, which part of that is also included working with the council to successfully gain vacant possession, sell back Wandsbeck Square and 2 to 4 one road as part of the long-term regeneration plans within Ashington. The estate itself, it's key that it's fit for purpose, so we're fully compliant in both our statutory obligations, and we've also just undertaken a large sort of capital programme piece of work, building surveys carried out on all of our properties. So now we're in a position where we can identify from them reports sort of the next 15-year sort of capital outlay that we're going to do as a sort of planned preventive maintenance programme, so we can ensure, you know, the properties retain fit for purpose and it would be utilised well. We're also doing a piece of work at the moment with RSN Homes team in terms of looking at sort of infill space that we've got. Some of them operate previous garage plots, others are sort of garden plots next to it. Just having a look to see if we can test that as potentially infill sort of residential sites, either to be done internally or as an external. Move on to the next slide, please. William mentioned his slide earlier on about sustainability and being sort of one of the key sort of factors within the organisation. I think just to demonstrate that within our commercial portfolio, all our workspaces and still quite a few of our sort of industrial units currently have solar PV on the roof. We've invested in that 5-6 years ago. We've also got ground source heat pumps in our Blythe workspace, and there's a ground source heat pump system that fully functions the heating provision for Wandsbeck workspace, which is shown on the bottom picture on there. That was done in conjunction, part private and part with Northumberland County Council. So, you know, as well, other schemes regarding Invest to Save feasibilities. So we're looking at potential PVs, heat pumps and other sustainable uses that we can use to reduce carbon across all of our portfolio, both for ourselves and also for our tenants again. With sustainability again in mind, you know, within all our sort of workspaces, there is very good sort of traffic links, and we try to get people to sort of use cycle paths and everything within there. We've got provisions for cyclists within each property regarding their sort of storage, showers, etc. And we've also looked about electric vehicle charging being key within all our portfolio wherever possible as well. Again, working with the NCC, we have now got in the last year charging points installed at Manor Walk, Ashington and Wandsbeck Blythe workspace. And we've got also provisions to bring out both with NCC and other providers, other strategic sites within Northumberland to continue this coming through. I think just when I'm on about investor safe works that we're potentially looking at for feasibility, just an example of that is we did quite a bit of low cost work last year at Manor Walks in terms of lighting controls, replacing the light fittings in both the internal and external lighting factor, and that's brought down a saving from the previous year of 46% on consumption. So, you know, it's been a worthwhile exercise that we've put in. It's something we'd like to sort of continue to replicate going forward. Next slide. Really just a quick slide on Manor Walks itself, because obviously it is, you know, our largest asset within the commercial portfolio. Just some facts on it really. You know, we've got 7 million visitors in the last year that have come through the doors. It's continuing to show year on year an increase on footfall, and we're back at the pre-COVID levels, which is, you know, a great relief, but it's also testimony to the hard work that everyone's putting in there to get people come through. We still have high occupancy levels, which are above national benchmarks for figures that are comparable with comparable retail sites of size and demographic. We only have sort of 2 or 3 units within Manor Walks at the moment, which are sort of vacant. We have, you know, active demand still across the board. It has been a challenging year, though, as everyone will be aware. Wilkinson administration. And we've also had a couple of our leisure operators have just rationalised their assets. However, we have continued to sort of grow on that. Poundland have replaced Wilkinson's. B&M moved into the former Buzz Bingo unit, so that's 30,000 square foot of new space that's been taken. Catello Lounge and Burger King have sort of come in at the southern mall, which have obviously enhanced sort of that leisure and food offer. And Sainsbury's have also, was a key anchor tenant there, now agreed a new long-term lease, so they're there as well. And really just building on that, the next sort of action in the forthcoming year is a brown asset strategy brief, which we'll bring to our board in relation to how, you know, the future proposals for improving and enhancing the offer, which is there, and the viability of the centre going forward. So that's it from there. Thank you.
Yes, you are right. Manor Walks, I'm a councillor from Crampington, so it's really, you know, picking up. So there are 2 questions. You put charging points there a long time ago, but they were out of use for a very long time. So we have been contacting Advanced Northern.
Are these the ones outside Concordia?
Not outside Concordia, but in the Smithy's old Smithy car park space. So we were told
that's the OB Council. We only obviously Advanced Northern have Manor Walks and the curtilage around that, but that
okay, right. But the problem is sorted out. I just wanted to know whether, you know, it's a blip. The second thing is, yes, the Manor Walks, the shopping center is getting too famous, I think, you know, for the locals, because there's lots of traffic and everything. And as you come out of B&M, the new shop, it's very popular, by the way, lots of visitors. And there is a roundabout, and you know, the traffic congestion is very bad. Sitting next to it, a land owned by Advanced Northumberland, which is turned into a temporary car park space during Christmas time. Is there any proposal to plan to develop that so that people can park that side?
I think, I don't know if you want to lead on that as much as anything with the development side.
Yeah, well, I might give a bit, if you will. So the sites were acquired for future development.
Yeah.
And whilst temporary, meanwhile, use of a temporary car park.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
What we're keen to not to see happen is that the site becomes a permanent car, because then it makes it a very expensive car park. There is a substantial amount of car parking, well over 1,500 car parking spaces. What we do recognise as part of the asset management strategy is that we do need a better movement strategy within Manor Walks, better legibility, better signage, you know, so people can see where the car parks are full. Because once you're in there, generally people will drive around to the final space.
Yes.
So we've recognised that as an issue, and rather than just provide more car parking, what we'd like to do is to manage the space that we have better. So part of that asset management strategy that Lee referred to is to look at that. It is quite a significant part of the asset management strategy, because what is really off-putting for anybody if they visit a centre and can't get parked, they'll simply drive off and go somewhere else, which is what we don't want to do. So recognising that, there's a plan in place to secure some specific advice. We had a meeting with members of the council last week to discuss this as well. But we recognise that there is better signage, better legibility, improved movement strategy, and to improve that car parking provision rather than just simply provide more, because those development sites should be able to provide opportunities for future investment into the town centre.
Yeah, thank you. I think if I may ask the follow-up, Chair, I think you are very well informed about the whole problems there. I completely agree. And also that site is pretty valuable to become, car park. Yeah. But if you could consult also with the Cramlington Town Council, they have few ideas because, some of the traffic can be, routed through this one so that the traffic congestion will be. I'm happy to note that you have some movement strategy as well.
Yes.
So if you could liaise, I'm also a town councillor.
Yeah.
So if you could liaise with the Cramlington Town Council to come to a kind of a, informed decision, that I would really appreciate that.
Absolutely delighted. And we met with Rob Strettle last week as part of that overall. And of course, that will feed into the town council and your thinking on that. But an important part of ensuring that we have a good liaison, good information provided, and that we have consultation so people know what's happening.
That's right. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Okay. Thank you. This is probably a question for John. During COVID, the rent arrears at Manor Walks understandably increased. Has that situation normalised now?
So very much so, yes. So obviously COVID, there was a lot of uncertainty in the market. A lot of retailers either couldn't pay their rent or struggled to pay their rent. We put a number of payment plans in place. The biggest one being with the View Cinema. We've now seen arrears have now started to come down the other way. They are back to pretty much normal levels, what we would expect to see at this point in the year. Yes, thank you. We're over the worst of that now.
Just a general one, probably wrong, sorry. We know you're working on a new business model. And how's that coming along?
This is what we continue to work with Jan and the council for this. There's a lot of work needs to be done on that market before it's in a position to be implemented. We're sitting with a sort of business model, if you like, the financing model, which was set up when Arch was created.
Yeah.
Needs to be reviewed so that we can sort of maximise what we can do for the council financially and in terms of delivery as well. So I'm not going to be able to give you a date of there's been no formal adoption or decisions around that, but we're both sides, if you like. It has to work for us, it has to work for the council, obviously, and we're both working very, very positively together towards hopefully something in the future. But I'm not going to put a date on it at this point.
That's fine as long as it's actively being worked on, shall we say.
It's certainly one of the priorities that I've passed across to my successor, Stephen, here. He'll be picking that up. And, to my mind, there's kind of the big company refinancing, restructuring, whatever you like to call it, that we can look at. But we might be able to look at other elements we can do to make things a bit more streamlined in the meantime. So it's not like there's a single silver bullet out there. I have several things we can work together on to make sure we continue to deliver into the long term.
Good.
Thanks. Yeah, can I just say the concluding remarks? Firstly, thank you for everyone on the committee for inviting us along here today, and hopefully you've seen the extent of the breadth of our activities here. We've gone through, and I also hope, and it's always hard for us to get across that although there are several teams and work on several fronts, where we add a lot of value is where it joins up. We've got projects in Bedlington, you've heard that several members of the team are approaching that, and I think that's a real strength to Advance Northumberland. We are quite unique in that respect. There are other council-owned companies across the country. There are none that I'm aware of that do the full range of activities that we're able to provide for the council. And, and that's a financial benefit to the council as well as a delivery benefit as well. So as you're aware, this is my last week at the helm of Advance. It's been a time of some great challenges, not least of which the COVID period. But I think the company, I'm hopeful I'm leaving it in a much stronger position than when I started. And I'd just invite Stephen maybe to say a word or two as what he thinks where the company will be going in under his tenure.
You think we rehearsed this, but we haven't honestly. I mean, there's just sort of 2 points I want to make that will link in with what Robin's just said. One of which is sort of picking up on Councillor Robinson's, I guess, concerns, fears maybe, in terms of the nature of the organisation. I'm fully aware, having just come in, I'm fully aware of the history of the organisation and the relationship with the council. What I have seen, even in the short time that I've been here, is that there's been some fantastic work in terms of, I think, William, you touched on it, changing the governance, improving on the nature of the organisation, changes on the board, etc. And I know that the team have been working really closely, and I'm hoping Jan's still there, but I know the team's been working really closely with Jan. So I think from my point of view, my initial observations are the checks and balances, Councillor Robinson, that you perhaps were alluding to, I think are very much in place. I think there's a level of control that we sort of got into, the detail of which we perhaps need to have a look at. But I certainly can understand that Jan and the team at Advance have put a lot of effort in there. So I think it looks like we're in a pretty good place there. I noticed she blanched a little bit at the word commercial and profit on a couple of occasions. I don't think we should make any excuse for the fact that the team here needs to be commercial, needs to make a profit. Remember, all that profit, and I'm getting this already, all that profit gets reinvested back in for the benefit of the people and the stakeholders within Northumberland. It's really my job, and I know that when there's a change in leadership, there can be concerns about how that's going to change in the culture that comes. That's not necessarily. It's not going to be the case here. I'm really keen to develop on the work that Jan and Robin and the rest of the team here have put in over the last 12, 18, 24 months. My job is to make the best of the talented team that we have. And I'm not just saying that because I'm here, but you didn't sell me a cup, Jeff, when it's 5 days that I've been here, that I realise there's a really talented and motivated team that you've got in Advance. I do get the fact that the organisation needs to be efficient, commercial, profitable, but does need to have that extra sensitivity given the nature of the task that it's got working with stakeholders. So the social side, perhaps the softer side of the relationship. I get that. I've spent a lot of time working in Northumberland over the years, and I really do look forward to working with you and the rest of the team working with you over the coming months. So I'm really excited about the opportunities here. Some fantastic projects, some real opportunity. The business model is, and I'll say this with Jan there as well, the business model is high on my hit list in terms of things to get stuck into, because I really want to make the most of the opportunities that this team have created. And bearing in mind that's only for the benefit, not for Advance, but that's for the benefit of all of us. So looking forward to really working with you. Thank you very much to say this publicly. Thank you to Robin for worked really well in the last few weeks to manage that handover. So he's telling me the good stuff, but also some of the other stuff as well. No, thank you. Now again, just once more working with you.
Can I make a quick remark? Yeah, I mean, just a quick and honest remark, because I became a councillor in 2021, just 3 years ago, 4 years ago, whatever. And then I joined this committee 1 year later. So during the time I have seen you, the progress you have made and the works you are doing, I think the more I come to know, the more I am, very appreciative of what you have done. Please, thank you very much for all the work you have done, honestly. Good luck with your moving up or moving sideways or whatever, Robin, Mr. Earl. Yeah.
On behalf of the committee, I'd like to thank you all for coming. Thank Robin for all his hard work and wish him well for the future. And with Stephen Luck on take up the mantle. We look forward to seeing you all again soon. You can update us on these projects. So we'll move on to the next slide of the agenda. You're welcome to say what you want, but you're welcome to do you also if you want.
This is my sister.
So this might cost. It's not recent.
Regulating up. Thank you very much. Yeah. Yeah, I'm a good counselor, so I need a lot more to learn. On his solutions. Well, yes. Thank you.
Bye.
No, we have next item on the agenda, which is item 6, financial performance and position of the council's finances in the December last year.
I'll give you a very brief introduction. At the end of December, we were forecasting an overspend of about £500,000, which is an improvement on the previous quarter. We're continuing to review where we are on a month-by-month basis, and the position has improved further since December. So I'm quietly confident that we're now heading towards a balanced outturn, potentially a small underspend. So a couple of issues to pick out from this report, some of which is a continuation of trends that we'd highlighted in previous reports, and then a new issue. So the things that you will already know about are the pressures on children's residential placements budget, and those continue to grow. So that is an underlying issue that we are doing a considerable amount of work on with Audrey and her children's team. We have new children's homes opening in April, and that will help to manage that increased demand. But there is a big national issue with children's residential placements costs. It's not just about the shortage of residential accommodation, but it's also the fact that the vast majority of that residential accommodation, particularly the residential accommodation that caters for very complex needs, is controlled by the private sector, and we have seen really steep increases in costs. So that will need a national coordinated intervention to address that, and government have taken that on board. I understand there's going to be an announcement later today about some additional capital being made available to councils to enable them to expand their own in-house and direct provision to rebalance the market. Whether any of that money comes to us, I don't yet know, but watch this space. But we are, the strategy that we're following is to, if we are able to expand our local provision, because we think that will give us the best prospect not only of managing the cost, but also ensuring that where we have kids that need to go into residential accommodation, it's in Northumberland and not, hundreds of miles away. So that's the first issue. We're continuing to see pressure on the SEND transport budget. So again, that's nothing new. There is a lot of work that's being done as part of the value for money work stream of BEST, which Audrey is leading. That's one of the areas of focus. So there will be some proposals coming back in the next month or two around what interventions we can make to help change that trend. And then the new issue that's arisen is, well, it's new in the sense that it's now crystallised. It's not new in the sense that it wasn't already on our radar, but we have identified the additional costs which Active Northumberland have been bearing as a result of the high levels of inflation that we're continuing to see, and continuing recovery from post-pandemic recovery in terms of membership numbers, etc. And that has crystallised at around £2 million for this financial year. Now we had 2 point something million set aside in a business recovery reserve. So we're proposing to use that reserve to meet those costs. In the event that when active are wound up, there is a surplus, because they do have reserves. And one of the things that we need to do is to ensure that they have sufficient reserves to meet all of their outstanding liabilities as part of the winding up process over the next 6 months. But any surplus monies that are left will be returned to the council. So it is entirely possible that that will be a significant 6-figure sum, possibly even a 7-figure sum. Sorry, I apologise, I'm losing my voice a bit. I'm actually suffering with a bit of a allergy at the moment, so forgive me if my voice gives out in the next few minutes, and I'll shut up and let you talk. But we're closely managing that close down process. We have established a transition board. I sit on the transition board. So does Jill O'Neill, who is the lead for the leisure procurement, and senior representatives from Active. So we are jointly managing that process to ensure that it's done in an orderly fashion, but that the council's sort of financial interests are protected as well. So that's a long-winded way of saying that I'm confident that some of that £2 million will come back to us eventually. I'm going to stop there, Chair, because there's a lot of detail in the report, and like I said, I'm going to be whispering in a minute, so I'll just stop.
Yeah, thanks, Dan, for that. Okay, do members have any questions, Dan, on that? Welcome.
Thank you, John. Just as an overview, as a general look at this thing, I see overspends in the millions, and I see underspends in the tens of thousands. But I see that overspends being taken care of by being paid out of reserves, various reserve funds we've got. Now, if that was my personal budget, I would think I'm living beyond my means. So, as the council living beyond its means, having to use reserves, the normal.
No, I think is the short answer. This particular issue is being dealt with from reserves because it's a one-off issue, and the reserve was set aside for that specific purpose. So we're drawing down on a reserve. It was always planned, that we would use the reserve at some point for this type of purpose. Recurring overspends are not being met from reserves. Non-recurrent overspends pressures are being met from reserves, but that's being done on a planned basis. So, we're not mortgaging the future. And as part of the budget process, where we know that there are recurrent pressures, they have been built into the budget and the MTFP for future years. And I hope that you know me well enough to know by now that I won't play fast and loose with the council's financial position. So I'll take a really hard line on that. I will not allow recurrent expenditure to be funded from reserves.
That's why I asked you the question.
Yeah.
Good to get that on the record. Thanks, Dan. Comments, reports, speak confidence. No, so I think this has already been to cabinet, but I think we can note it. So thank you very much for that. And
thank
we'll
you.
move on to the next item on the agenda, which is best in class. I think Pam's going to talk just like this.
I just want to check. Would you be okay for me just to move so that you can all see me?
Yeah, that's
Base.
You need a help to move?
No, it's fine.
Hey, I was going to be accompanied by two other colleagues today, and unfortunately, they've also gone down ill. One was Jill O'Neill. So Jill O'Neill is the executive workstream lead. I am the workstream lead and head of corporate functioning and procurement. We were also going to be joined, or I was going to be joined by a colleague from Deloitte, who are our external delivery partner. And unfortunately, as of last night, she went down as well. So you've got me, and hopefully I can answer all of your questions. If not, I'll certainly follow up. I believe this is the first time that we've come in really to do a bit of a deep dive, a bit of a spotlight on one of the work streams within BEST. So this is about best in class commissioning and of course communities first. There are two elements, but I'm going to focus on one specific, the side that I lead on. I thought it would be helpful to provide you with the context of how it fits into the wider governance of BEST. So it is a work stream where we've got these different elements: contract management, category management, third-party spend, and commissioning framework. Those are the elements that we're working on to ensure that we do have best-in-class commissioning within North England County Council. That work stream, we report into a work stream board, which comprises representatives from across the council, because it's really important, I think, that we get the challenge. So, you can come up with wonderful ideas, can't you? But we need the challenge from the people who are involved in certain areas to see whether or not actually are there unintended consequences if we make changes in some of the things that we do. And as you can see, all of the various work streams falls into an operational steering board and into a BEST board, which is chaired by the chief executive, the leader and the deputy leader of the executive committee. So quite a lot of governance that oversees this, and I just wanted to set the context. Next slide, please. For each of these elements, I thought it would be helpful just to explain what it is we mean when we're saying contract management, and just to explain progress to date. In terms of contract management, an internal audit review a year or so ago found that the council had limited assurance on its contracts actually fully delivering all of the benefits that they're intended to do. There's a number of reasons for that. So the intention behind this is to have a centralised oversight, one single source of the truth, to be able to provide the training, to be able to monitor, to be able to report on any themes or anything that we really need to drill into. It's a challenge for a lot of councils, and I'm obviously in touch with peers and colleagues in other councils. We're very fortunate in that we've got senior leadership buy-in. The reason it's a challenge for us is that contracts are managed in directorates in the service areas. There is a mixed bag of expertise. So we'll see really good areas of good practice, close relationship management with suppliers. But we'll see other areas where perhaps due to staff turnover, perhaps because of a skill set, particular skill shortage, there isn't that same level of performance. So we have recruited a contract and supply relationship manager who will have that corporate remit so that we can analyse all of our live contracts. We will know which ones are strategic. We'll be able to make sure that they are being properly contract managed, that they are delivering the benefits that they are meant to be delivering. And it seems obvious when you say it. Often the focus of somebody will be, well, it was to build something or it was to deliver a service. But within those contracts, there can be all sorts of other things that contractor has promised to provide, and they may never be materialised. So that's really what's driving this particular activity. We do have an action plan, and as I say, we're mobilising that at the moment, but it's something we've wanted to really get our teeth into, and now that we've got the right person in place, we'll be able to take that forward. Next slide. This is the next element, which is category management. This is really to enable us to better manage not only our expenditure, but our strategic relationships with the market. And that goes back to that previous comment. If we aren't able to go to one single source of truth to see where are our strategic contracts and how can we better manage our relationships with those key suppliers in a consistent manner. We have, as part of the work today, developed a new category structure. So instead of us going forward and procuring on a project by project basis, this is taking a step back and having a holistic approach to construction or social care or ICT, so that we're seeing the bigger picture. And, you know, it's a situation where we could have 6 or 7 contracts with the same supplier. They've all been tendered for, but we haven't been able to take that step back and say, how do we leverage the best relationship, the best outcomes with that one supplier? And that's why we want to put category management in. We are looking at the existing workforce as well to make sure that they're supported as we move into this different contracting approach. And we will have a category strategy for each of those categories. So again, when something happens, whether it be a war or whether there's a shortage, of microchips, for each category, we will be able to very quickly establish what's the impact, because we'll be looking at the entire category, not just, oh, there's a supplier problem. So, so we're piloting that at the moment with ICT, and then we'll learn some lessons from that, and then we hope to have the strategies all in place by May, June time, and then that's something that we will be able to manage across the council with colleagues. Thank you. So third-party spend, we recognise that around 60% of the council's budget is spent with third-party suppliers, and really the main objective for this is to look for those efficiency savings, and if we can, recurrent efficiency savings. So far, we've established 2.2 million savings by the end of Q3, but actually we're looking for much more than that, and that's why we wanted the assistance of our external delivery partner with Deloitte, because this is about leakage in a lot of cases. So those 4 bullets to the right-hand side of the screen really illustrate this is about making sure we have the right processes in place and the right controls and governance in place. So it's not about what is it that we want to buy, do we need to buy, do we actually need to spend the money in the first place? Looking at things that we purchase on a repeated basis, and yes, office stationery might be quite a low area. You know, we don't spend an awful lot on it, but if we establish the principles of it, that's what we will then replicate across everything else. Instead of offering people the ability to order, I don't know, 3 types of notepads, we'll offer them 1. And so it's those principles, and that's taking staff with us on that journey. And again, you know, we need to do that in a controlled way, but it's the only way if we are serious about establishing the types of savings that we're going after. And then cost recovery opportunities as well, and, you know, our commercial relationships, what are in the contracts when they were let. Some of these contracts will have been running maybe 5 years, 10 years. So when they were set up, what was in the small print? So delving into their promises that they made and holding them to account, and making sure that they deliver what they've said they'll deliver. And things change, of course. You know, we've seen with technology, contracts that might have been put in place for technology, even just 3 years ago, things change so much. We need to sit back down with those key suppliers, renegotiate, and see what else is happening from an innovation point of view that could benefit how we deliver services. Finally, the commissioning framework is it's a very different approach to how we've done things in the past, and we're wanting to make sure that we do it in the right way, and the way to do that is by making sure that we're engaging not only with our internal colleagues but also externally with our suppliers, with our voluntary sector, because we want to hear their voice, so that we're developing it's a co-developed approach. We had a workshop on the 28th of February. There's some photographs in the slides to show that. There's another follow-up on the 9th of April. the council has commissioned in a fragmented way previously. We work in our little areas and we all have our focus on our strategic objectives. But again, this is how do we come together and make sure that we're one council working together when we commission our goods, works and services. We held a really successful supplier day, really for Northumberland-based suppliers on the 1st of March, just in this room actually. We had really good attendance and really good feedback from the suppliers who came as well. So that was just the start of that process. So we're going to be having additional events with the voluntary and community sector. There will be sort of sector-specific events as well, so purely for construction or purely for, perhaps sort of the building community, etc. So that these are the kinds of things that we want to be working on. And again, it all links with, well, what's the category, what's the strategy, where have we got gaps? Let's see what the market can provide for us. So yeah, there's lots to do, but we've definitely got the appetite for it, and it's something we've been wanting to really get our teeth into for quite some time. So I think the final slide just shows you some of the those workshops and some of those elements from the supplier engagement as well. I'll stop there because I feel like I've talked a lot, and I'm sure you've all got lots of questions for me.
Thanks so much, Pam. That's very informative and quite good to see the best scheme in actual operation. Do we have any questions or clarifications on that? Nick?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. That was really interesting. A couple of questions on the contract management. The sort of basis of that relationship is a contract, a legal document. Do we have the legal resources sort of in-house to get that right? Because if you get that right the first time, you're setting a sort of solid foundation for the ongoing relationship.
I think the answer is yes, we do now. I think some of the contracts though they may be 10 years old, and so it's more around the ability to look at what was in that, in that contract and having the supplier in, and it may be that the relationship with some of those strategic suppliers has become quite distant. So this is around, no, we need to have that one single approach with our strategic suppliers. That was the bit that was missing.
Great, thank you.
John?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Thanks for the report. I think in councils it used to be risk assessment, or best is now risk assessment, or in private business it would be good business practice. How do you quantify, obviously you're trying to get the best value for money, but how do you quantify if the cheapest supplier is in Yorkshire, whatever, but you have a local supplier who's more expensive but is creating local jobs? How do you quantify that, or is there a calculation that you can use?
The way that we approach it is to assess what the award criteria is going to be, actually, which is aligned to our corporate objectives. So usually not price alone, usually price and quality. And part of quality is around how are you going to deliver the services locally so that we get the best standard of service. And usually that's where that sort of local supply market have that strength. What I would say is that one of the key drivers for some of this activity as well is procurement legislation is going to change. It's due to come into effect in October. We've been waiting for it since 2021. It is a major significant overhaul of how public organisations up and down the country will be procuring. So we will have greater accountability to suppliers and to the, so we'll be reporting on the performance of those key suppliers. Much more focus on social value. Again, brings it back to local, brings it back to getting the best for our communities. And less bureaucracy for suppliers. So your smaller suppliers and your SMEs will have greater opportunity to bid and win those opportunities, rather than, because sometimes there is that uneven, an unlevel playing field, isn't there, where you can have a smaller supplier trying to fill in a tender document alongside a very large multinational organisation, not a whole team, and that's all they do is fill in the tenders. So that new legislation that's coming in, that's what we're all gearing up for.
On that, a lot of small suppliers would love some of the contracts, but do you look at them and say we have to pay them quicker? rather than, keep them waiting for 2 or 3 months to have payment?
No.
Do you take that into consideration? They can manage it, but they couldn't wait for the 3 months or 2 months to be paid.
No, we actually write it into our contracts that the supply chain efficiently and effectively. So we sort of specify the timescales, because to us that's just not acceptable.
From the money coming from council to the supplier?
Correct,
Yeah.
yes, correct. And the other thing that we've done is that we have a supplier incentive scheme. So all Northumberland-based suppliers are put on a much more prompt payment terms, which we call free pay. So again, we're trying to align everything. But for me, those supplier engagement days, that's why they're really important, because we might assume there's always that risk that we assume we know what's best. We need to make sure we're open for business with those local suppliers and that they can find the person to speak to, and have access to training in terms of how to write a good bid. Again, these are the areas we want to be involved in a lot more detail.
That's so. Some dealings with Northern Time, and filling in the forms, it's a minefield.
Yeah.
And you have to have a team, and they're very good with. They're a small supplier. We'll make sure they get priority payment.
Yeah.
So important.
Just to add to that point, I mean, obviously we're aware that most government simplifications and reduction of bureaucracy, obviously double bureaucracy, make it more complicated. Are we confident? Obviously, we're going through this process to change the focus of our procurement, but I hope we're keeping in mind to actually on some simplification in the fact that forms for the sake of forms seems to be the way forward, and more reporting requirements on us, more accountability for us, presumably means more work for us and more forms for us to fill in. So are we working on ways to streamline that process internally as well?
Yes, we are, and I think that's where the best work streams are all linked, because if I need to get away from using paper forms, I need to digitise forms. There is a work stream that is specifically looking at that and to enable that activity. I think we will find our feet in terms of what the requirements are under the new procurement, the new Procurement Act, and of course. It will come into effect, and then it'll settle in as real case studies go through, and there will be amendments, no doubt about it. But yes, I think that's why we have that operational steering board, because they have that oversight across all of the best work streams to make sure that we're not over duplicating effort as well.
Because I think there's a temptation whether there's a new requirement, you should have another box to form, another tick to be added, which adds nothing really, but it is.
Yeah, and I think that bidders, we're hoping it's going to come into effect from October, but one of the key thrusts of that is that bidders will not have to be filling in tender documents that are like a telephone directory. They won't have to be providing evidence that they've got insurance and health and safety policies until they win the contract. And then as part of due diligence, and we heard about the construction companies, we need to do due diligence on the higher value, because it's risk, but certainly on the lower value ones, it's how do we just do things faster.
Certificates from pencil suppliers.
Absolutely.
Right.
Unless the pencils are very sharp.
Well, that's
great that you've got £2.2 million in procurement efficiencies by the end of December, but that's about 0.5% of the addressable spend. What are you actually hoping to get to in terms of overall procurement efficiencies?
So when the initial business case was put in place, there was a range of savings that were suggested to the council, which ranged from between 5 million and 21 million. So for me, I was, and that was there is an opportunity. What we asked our external delivery partner is to validate that, to actually get into the detail and make sure. So at the moment, they've identified 9 million. We are working with the key stakeholders in those areas that they've identified that. But again, it comes back to some of that is about turning the tap off. So if we're talking about, I don't know whether it's agency workers or whatever it might be, it's about looking at, well, where's the demand coming from? What's driving the demand? And engaging with those areas and putting policies in place. But that's the number that we're currently focused on. Yeah. But the aspiration is it will be higher than.
Yeah. Thank you.
Very good. Thanks. Anyone? Oh, Michael?
But Jan, if I could just ask you a quick one. I'm looking at the Transformational Fund Reserve, the best budget. It's talking about rules. It's talking about having people on board. Is it 3.653 million extra to the original 9 million we agreed for these rules?
Sorry, Malcolm, which page are you looking at on your pack?
Page 38, and it's
38.
yeah. Transformational Fund Reserve best the budget. Projects have already been approved by the Best Working Board, including, for example, Fix My Street, Living Leader, Lab and Management System. In addition, several fixed-term roles have been recruited in order that the project can progress. Now, it seems to be 3.653 million is the cost of those roles. Is that extra to the 3 million over 3 years?
No, no, these are commitments against that 9 million.
Okay. Thank you. And a question, I did commissioning and procurement training at this county council. Some years ago, I was on the other side of the fence. And it seemed to me the first thing everybody was doing was trebling the price. They were putting in for tenders, but it was 3 times the cost for whatever reason. In fact, I put in with another 2 development trusts, and we were turned down because it was too cheap. Because it would seem, oh, you're not expensive enough to have all this other stuff in place. You know what you said? Whereas in fact, you didn't really need it. So I can see there's a mindset out there. If you get a contract with a council, they'll pay whatever you want. That's the mindset. That's, I think, where the bulk of this funding will be found if we broke that mindset down. Because I've got projects going on in my ward that I know I could get delivered much cheaper by people I know, by businesses I know, and they're not engaged with this process. So it needs to be really simple for them.
Yeah.
But you get huge cost benefits by just getting the little guys in to do the smaller jobs. So instead of 69,000 to dig 4 holes and fill them with concrete, you pay 20. You know, that sort of thing. It's as simple as that. Yes.
If I just respond, I think that for me, key to this is about engagement, as I said. You know, it especially post-COVID, I think when suppliers are looking to say, who can I speak to? You know, we have contact numbers and we have email addresses, and we used to meet the buyer events and had dedicated time to just sit down, and anybody who wanted to walk in the front door could come and sit down and just find out more about the process. Now, I'm not saying that in a modern world that we could spend 5 days a week doing that, but we can certainly hold surgeries for local suppliers, just to do some myth busting as well. Because if there is a perception that a council contract is cash cow, then that's wrong. We do benchmarking before we go out to tender, so we get a feel for, well, what should we be paying? And there's all sorts of different types of benchmarking, clearly, depending on what it is we're looking to procure. But for me, it's about, well, establishing who are the suppliers in the marketplace first. It's about providing training for them so that when they put in a bid, they're actually completing the information we need, because of course, we do have a statutory function. We do need to make sure they've got the right insurance so that if a wall fell down, we've actually, you know, we've done our due diligence. But I think it's a 2-way process, and this is what that, certainly developing a commissioning framework is part of that. So I hope
Now, your new contracts manager, have they come from the private sector or the public sector?
Public sector.
Because that's a worry for me. My background's private sector, and I know how that works. The public sector seems a strange animal for me to get my head around, shall we say, the way it goes around things.
Just on that particular point, I mean, obviously you've got Deloitte's in from the private sector advising on this process, which is good. But I mean, for example, a very good friend of mine is a very senior procurement manager, a very large multinational building contractor, and obviously, Oliver Pine tells me that he thinks public sector procurement is in a mess, and private sector could teach you a thing or two, which obviously would say that. But just do we obviously are we getting that sort of private sector view and expertise on process? Because some of the big boys in the private sector obviously manage these kind of large projects, so they procure these large projects. And are we taking anything from them on that?
We are. I think there's two aspects to this really. I think that so what we have adopted is the government's model for best practice. It's a very and it's a framework and policy that members of all experts in managing every type of contract. What we're going to be doing is providing that central oversight, the training and the upskilling. The technical expertise is in the service areas. They know what it is that they're wanting from their contracts. As I say, the issue often is when we've gone out to tender, we haven't thought about it in terms of, is this a strategic contract versus tactical operational? And therefore, the ability to put those key performance indicators in, to hold suppliers to account, we haven't had those put into the contracts. In terms of having Deloitte on board, it's great because they're going to help us embed this, and they certainly have their own observations as well and support. But it's getting the balance right so that we don't go one size fits all. And then when we're trying to encourage the small local suppliers, they're saying, well, hang on, this contract, it's only for such and such, but I'm having to provide all of these KPIs and extra information because it's a strategic contract. So it's having the right size for each type of procurement. And that's where I think that category approach comes in. Because it depends what the category is. It depends what the market is. If it's social care is very, very different to construction, to ICT and so on. So it's a jigsaw, and all of these different pieces will come into play.
I'm very pleased you say it's a multifaceted approach you're taking there. Because to me, if we got the smaller, the micro businesses really embracing council work and whatnot, the payback would be apprentices. It would be upskilling the workforce, not sharing proceeds out across a boardroom in London. That's the difference. That's what we need to embrace and get the local guys involved.
Yes, I think, can I add one more point? I mean, what Malcolm said is very correct, because it appears whatever we do as a council, the price simply shoots up. We feel that it's a feeling shared by many councillors and experienced by many councillors. For example, we give out some work from our MLIS scheme for small works. Like I wanted to replace a fence, 10-foot fence, and it was much more expensive than what I could do. So they charge me 2 times more than what I myself go around and pick up the phone and do it. Of course, you have to make sure that there are lots of other things are met. That's an issue, but still I feel those contractors are ripping us apart. I think I completely share Malcolm's. It's a personal experience. I mean, it's not only hearsay, it's a personal experience that is shared by lots of councillors. If you could do something about this one, that's up to you.
Chair, can I come in if you wouldn't mind? I mean, I think there's a couple of things to say here. So the first thing is, Pam's quite right. We work within the procurement framework and the legislation that's set out by government. I think there is a recognition, that framework is perhaps not conducive to value for money, and that's why the new Procurement Act is coming in later in the year. But we can't just do our own thing and ignore, all of the statutory guidance and the procurement legislation. So hopefully that's going to move us. That new act is going to move us in the right direction. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, actually, we have a very good track record of working with local suppliers. We benchmark, the value and the number of contracts that are going to local suppliers, small local suppliers in Northumberland against all our neighbouring authorities, and we're always at the top, and they ask us how we do it. So just want to give a bit of context. That's not to say that we can't do a lot more, you know, with the right, with the right framework, the right legal sort of regime. I think we can do a lot more, as Pam's outlined. But actually, we're probably doing, as well as, if not better than, the vast majority of other councils. I think you're right that councils generally, it's not just Northumberland, but councils generally are seen, as an opportunity to add an extra 10, 15, 20% markup by suppliers. And you see that happening all the time. Same as if you live in a posh postcode, you want somebody to come around and put up a fence for you, they're probably going to add 15 or 20% to the bill for you as well, because they think you're well heeled and you can afford it. So that's nothing new. But I do think we need to be slightly careful here about going too far in the opposite direction and only focusing on price, that we always work with the cheapest supplier. That brings risks, and also I think there's a debate to be had about how much importance we give to other factors, like, their environmental credentials, for example, when we're evaluating tenders. There are all sorts of other things which we're currently obliged to consider as part of the tendering process. Perhaps with a new regime, some of those things will be more optional. And we're going to have the debate at that point about whether there are things that we still want to continue to do, because value for money does not equate to the cheapest. Economy is only one of 5 dimensions of value for money. The others being efficiency, effectiveness. Are they actually going to deliver what you need them to deliver to the required quality standard? Equity. And I've forgotten what the other one is, but there is a 5th one. Pam will remind me later what it is. But I'm just saying, for me, this whole debate comes back to, what does value for money mean for us as council? How do we balance all of those different things and then deliver them, within the legislative framework that we have to operate in? That's it. I'm going to shut up at that point. Thank you, Chair.
That's great clarification. It is good to hear that we are leading the way on local suppliers.
So can I ask one question too?
Go,
Yeah. I mean, I do acknowledge, what you are saying, Jan. Yes, I'm not expecting the council to give the same price as I can find as an individual for my area. I completely agree. There will be some overheads, but sometimes we feel it is 2.5 times, 3 times, up to 3 times of what we can do. This is what is bugging me. That's a different.
And you're absolutely right. I'm not disagreeing with that at all.
The question I wanted to ask was, initially you said we have to work within the procurement framework, such statutory obligations and everything. And that is being revised by the Act of Parliament, the Procurement Act or something like that, but it doesn't happen yet. That's what I understand. So therefore, our 9 million target, which it is contingent upon that new act being passed on. Am I right in my understanding? No. Okay.
No, and it may well be when that new act comes in, and of course we don't know exactly what it's going to look like yet, do we, Pam?
No, they're doing the final readings on it.
Yeah, but assuming that there's no further amendments to that when it comes in, that may well help us to do more, to go further. But all the things that Pam's described are things which are completely within our control.
Right. Okay. Thank you. That's all I wanted.
Welcome.
Can I just ask a quick question? Is there still the thresholds there?
Yes.
What are they now?
Do you mean currently?
Yeah.
Yes, threshold. So I'm going to round it up.
Yeah.
So it's 189,000 on goods and services, and it's just in the region of 4 million for works.
Right.
Thank you very much. I think that's a very good discussion on that one as well. There's some very good discussions today. Right, moving on, thank you, Pam, and your team that aren't here, and I hope they get better soon. Next is number 8, monthly income.
Different chair, and we just also confirmed the reporting finishes. That would be completed next week. It's been committed. Excellent.
For that? No? Okay, move on to number 9, urgent business. I've not been informed of any. So I'll close the meeting. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.